Good morning. Welcome to the first semi-annual State Purchasing Procedures and PCard training session for Cabinet Secretaries, Deputy Secretaries, Division Directors, Division Deputy Directors, and other executive-level state employees. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dave Tincher, and I'm Director of the West Virginia Purchasing Division. The Purchasing Division is a division within the Department of Administration under the direction and leadership of Cabinet Secretary Jason Pizzatella. By now, I'm sure that all of you know why you're here. During the 2014 session, Governor Tomlin introduced Senate Bill 356. This bill, which was successfully passed into law, requires all of you here today to attend 2 hours of mandatory training each year on purchasing procedures and PCard use. This training will be offered again in the spring and will also be available online in the near future. And going forward, you may take the training live or online. Since this is our first time offering this mandatory training, we'll focus today's purchasing presentation on providing a high-level overview of the entire process. As we begin to offer subsequent trainings semi-annually, we'll change up the presentations a little bit. We'll go into specific methods of purchasing, processing times, contracts, and those sorts of things. Those of you here today represent the top level of managers in state government. You're educated, experienced, trained, and you're the recognized experts in your field. All of you lead and manage the delivery of services required of your agencies to the citizens of West Virginia. In all the time that I've been here, and I've been here a long time, I don't recall this many leaders of diverse agencies being in one place at one time for the same purpose. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. We appreciate it. In order for your agencies to be successful in delivering services to the citizens of West Virginia, you need various types of commodities and services on a regular and ongoing basis. The Purchasing Division's core function is to obtain on your behalf these commodities and services to allow you to fulfill your mission. We're a critical partner to your agency as we work together to fulfill your needs as they relate to these commodities and services. With this session today, we hope that you'll obtain a general understanding of who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce staff here that's helping today with the presentation, either as a speaker or support staff. I'll ask them to stand briefly, and you'll see them later as we go forward. Assistant Director Diane Holly Brown, Assistant Director Mike Sheets, Assistant Director Elizabeth Perdue, Purchasing Division Attorney Jimmy Meadows, Public Information Specialist Chad Williamson, and Administrative Secretary Debbie Watkins. We have six objectives for today's training. One, we're going to give you a brief history of procurement in West Virginia state government. Two, we're going to give you an overview of the division's organizational structure, programs, and statistics. Three, we're going to lead a discussion of the Purchasing Division decision path that walks agencies through the purchasing process from beginning to end. We teach this process to your agency procurement officers to guide them in selecting the appropriate method of purchase for each and every purchase your agency makes to help them accomplish their goals effectively and efficiently. Number four, a review of some agencies that operate in whole or in part independently of the Purchasing Division. Number five, the role that the agency's designated procurement officer plays, and highlighting some training opportunities available through the West Virginia Purchasing Division, and talk about some violations that occur in the process of not following the law and the rules. And then six, we'll go over some questions that you may have as the head of a state agency. We'll start with the history. We've traced the origin of the Purchasing Division to the 1930s, the early 1930s. Prior to that time, in state government, agencies operated independently of each other. They generally bought whatever they needed, whenever they needed it, from whomever they wanted, with very limited or any laws, rules, and procedures on the books. Government soon realized that by centralizing, it could save time, money, and increase competition and allow all the vendors an opportunity to sell to the state. With that thought in mind, the Purchasing Division was created to centralize that purchasing activity. And laws and rules were created at that time, and they were very broad and general. Let's fast forward now to the 1960s. All of you, I'm sure, have heard that Wally Barron was elected governor in the 1960s, and there were some issues that occurred there. Some of you may know the story, some of you may not. I'd like to take a couple minutes and explain what happened. When Governor Barron and his top managers came to government, they realized they had an opportunity to conspire and use their public offices for private gain. You might recognize that public office for private gain phrase. It's the mantra of the West Virginia Ethics Commission. These state officials created several shell companies headquartered out of state. The most well-known of those was named InvestRight. It was headquartered in the state of Florida. Suppliers that were bidding or wanted to bid in state government were told, go join InvestRight, pay the membership fee, and you'll be more successful in selling products and services to the state of West Virginia. So a lot of these companies did just that. Then when these companies were successful, and when they joined InvestRight, they were very successful, they were required to return a portion of the sales back to InvestRight. So this effort to abuse the public trust continued for a couple of years, and then it unraveled. There were many, many people involved, and it didn't take time for people to start talking. So investigations were done, and Governor Barron and his top managers received appropriate punishment. The result of that is that state government reacted in a manner that governments do when something wrong occurs. We get new laws, we get rules, we get processes in order to prevent reoccurrence of something like that. That happened. Additionally, a new agency was created at that time, which is now known as the Legislative Commission on Special Investigations. The entire mission of that organization is to investigate alleged abuse of public purchasing, whether on the state or local level in West Virginia. Now, since the 1960s, there's never been a similar scandal. The laws were tight enough that seemed to prevent that kind of thing. However, there are occasional instances that pop up from time to time where rules weren't followed or laws weren't followed. Most of these issues are minor in nature, and most perhaps are even accidental. However, as they occur and awareness is raised, the possibility of the normal government reaction is high. Whenever something bad occurs, we try to prevent it from happening again. And when I say we, I mean all of us. I don't mean the purchasing division. I mean the administration, the legislature, the lobbyists, everybody. So we are regularly looking for opportunities to streamline processes and develop better ways to buy in accordance with the laws and rules currently in effect. Senate Bill 356, championed by Governor Tomlin, creates several new and exciting opportunities and kind of loosens the reins a little bit. Going forward, we're going to be able to do reverse auctions, which is a process like eBay in reverse, where vendors get an opportunity to bid not just once, but more than one time and lower their price to the state. We have recreation of the secondary bid process. You may recall that as a result of issues related to routers and towers in the last couple of years, we were prevented from proceeding with secondary bid contracts, and we'll explain more about that later. We convinced the legislature this year that was a valid process, so we've now got the ability to do that again. There are some limitations, and we're working through those right now, but hopefully we can bring that back to you in the future. Senate Bill 356 also permits the Director of Purchasing and the Cabinet Secretary of the Department of Administration the ability to stop contracts early when there is misbehavior that relates to those contractings. Before, we didn't have the ability to stop anything as early as we needed to. And then finally, this session, hopefully this will create awareness at a high level, and the more knowledge we all have, the more effective we can all be. Let me talk for just a minute now about the organizational structure of the purchasing division. We have a staff of approximately 55 full-time employees. We're located mostly here on campus in Building 15, and we're also located at Surplus Property location in Dunbar. We have three sections of the purchasing division. One is the acquisition and contract administration section. This group manages and processes purchases and contracts in excess of $25,000. You have the ability to buy at your level less than that, and again, we'll talk more about that later. The section also takes care of contract management and agency inspection services. Many of you know that our inspectors come around occasionally and take a look at what you've bought, how you've bought it, and assuring that the appropriate rules and procedures were followed. We do a follow-up report with them, and we copy many of you in this room on that, so you should know how your agencies are performing. The section has a staff of 12 actual buyers and supervisors that do the day-to-day, down in the weeds buying. Our buyers are assigned by agency rather than by commodity. They serve as subject matter experts for the purchasing process, not in each and everything that they buy. In fact, we couldn't have enough knowledge to be experts in each and everything we buy. Take a look at some of the things that you guys buy. They're special commodities and services and require special education and training. So we can't bring that to the table. But what we can bring to the table is expertise in the public purchasing process. We have assigned our buyers, a group of agencies to buy for, so that you have a sole point of contact in the purchasing division for each and everything your agency buys. If your agency has questions about what's going on, your agency procurement officer should know the answer. If not, our buyer in the division that manages purchases for your agencies should be able to give that information. Let me go back just a second to specialized things and explain a little bit of why we're organized the way we are. For example, if we're bidding dump trucks for the Division of Highways, it's not likely that anybody in the purchasing division has expertise in dump trucks. But if technical issues arise around specifications or the award of a contract for dump trucks, the Division of Highways has a bunch of people that have expertise in dump trucks. Same thing with technology. You know, we buy a lot of technology now. Everybody has a little bit of knowledge about technology, but when we need help, we turn to the Office of Technology. They have the trained and educated experts in technology. Our assigned buyer for your agencies works on a day-to-day basis with your agency procurement officer, and these folks handle the transactions. They get way down into the weeds, and they talk and communicate and email each and every day. At your level, if you have questions about certain purchases, and I'm sure you will, many of you have those that come up from time to time, you will have contracts come up that's the most important thing to you on a specific day. If you need information about that contract and you can't get it from your agency procurement officer or your agency buyer, or if you prefer to call me, call me. My number is 558-2538. It's in the handout that you received when you came into the room, and I believe it'll be on the screen at some point during this presentation. What do we buy? We buy a wide variety of commodities and services. We buy some things that are common to all agencies, things like office supplies, technology, vehicles. For those common items, we bid and award statewide contracts on behalf of all state agencies. We aggregate the quantity that we think we're going to buy, so we go out, instead of buying onesie-twosie, we buy thousands. By promising vendors we're going to buy thousands, we get a better price for all of us. We also bid and award agency-specific contracts for commodities and services. For example, we buy food and medical supplies for the Division of Corrections, reclamation projects for the Department of Environmental Protection, and railroad equipment and services for the Railroad Maintenance Authority. So you can see that's a wide variety there, and I haven't even touched the surface of the things that each agency needs and only that agency may need. We use different types of procurement methods depending on the commodity or service bought, the value, the timeliness, the situation, and we work with your agency procurement officer on the type of purchase that's necessary for the specific transaction that's coming up. The second section is the Communication and Technical Services section. This group is responsible for technology, communication, professional development and training, and related administrative functions, including vendor registration, imaging and record retention, bid receipt, and purchase order encumbrance. This training today, for example, was developed and organized by this group. And then our third section is our Program Services section. They're responsible for several programs, including Travel Management Office, which offers guidance to state business travelers and oversees statewide contracts for travel-related services. Includes the Fixed Asset Unit, which manages the state's inventory of personal property. And then finally, the Surplus Property Program, which manages state and federal programs for property no longer in use by the respective governments. And finally, we have a staff attorney who manages our legal affairs, including contract terms and conditions, disputes and resolutions, and other relevant and legal administrative issues. Let me hit on some statistics. During fiscal year 2014, the Purchasing Division processed approximately 1,200 new purchase orders, and 70% of those were awarded to West Virginia vendors. Those 1,200 contracts are estimated to be have a value of about $540 million. In addition to the new purchase orders, we also processed approximately the same number, 1,200, change orders to existing contracts. And then finally, we have hundreds of contracts that are in process that didn't consummate at the end of the fiscal year when we did the report. We work closely with vendors to ensure they follow the proper vendor registration guidelines. During FY14, our office processed more than 8,000 vendor registrations, renewal notices, and updates. We scanned more than 390,000 pages of supporting documentation for FY14 transactions. Most of our purchases are based on formal competition. We award to either the low bidder meeting spec or the highest scoring vendor for a particular contract. Not always, when we award a contract, do all the vendors that bid agree with that. There are some vendors that like to protest an award, and that's their right. That right exists in the Code of State Rules and allows them to challenge any award. Based on the number of transactions that we processed and new contracts that we awarded last fiscal year in 2014, we have a protest rate of about 2%. Actually, it's a little less than 2%. And that number seems standard from year to year. So we receive around 20 protests a year. Almost all of those protests come to us in writing, and we respond in writing, and they're almost all decided in the state's favor. Rarely is an award overturned. There is an occasional need to rebid, but that's the exception rather than the rule. Vendors also have the right to ask for an administrative hearing. I can't remember the last time we've had an administrative hearing. It's probably 3 or 4 years ago. And then finally, vendors that continue to disagree also have the option of filing suit in circuit court in Kanawha County. The last time we were in circuit court is probably 5 or 6 years ago at least. For 2 years straight, the West Virginia Purchasing Division has earned the Achievement of Excellence in Procurement Award from the National Procurement Institute. We are the only governmental unit in the state of West Virginia to receive this award, and one of only 7 in the United States to receive the award in 2014. We're evaluated on our staff's education, training, certification, our rules and processes, among other things. We do some national networking. We belong to the National Association of State Purchasing Officials, which is the national professional organization for all 50 states' purchasing divisions. We meet, collaborate, network with these other states on an ongoing and regular basis, both nationally and regionally. This organization also sponsors contracts that are bid and awarded on behalf of all states to realize economies of scale. As I said earlier, it's similar to our statewide contracts, only it's ramped up substantially. You can imagine the pricing we can get if all 50 states go together. We use these contracts when we can. There are some laws and rules surrounding our ability to use these, and we'll discuss those in a little bit. All of our eligible buyers and other professional staff are educated and trained and certified, both locally and nationally. The minority that are not currently certified are actively engaged and on track to be certified as soon as they gain tenure. Those are just a few of the functions we performed and a high-level overview of the division. I'd like to turn it over now to the next speaker, but before I do, does anyone have any questions on anything that we've just talked about? All right, yes, sir. Wait, hang on just a second. Microphone. Rob, if you would give your name and agency for the record. Sounds like the legislature, doesn't it?
My name is Robert Rice. I'm the Chief of the Office of Abandoned Mine Lands. And Dave, let me start by saying thank you. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to get together and get a better understanding of what you guys do. My question to you is, what benefit would it be to your buyers to have a similar training with the agencies that they represent and serve to better learn the different intricacies of the buying that they deal with?
Sure. Thank you for that question. We're up for that. You know, we do a lot of training for your agency procurement officers, and some of your program people also come to the training that we conduct. As far as our buyer going out to the agency, we support that. If we can come to your agency and do some agency-specific training, we're happy to do that. We've done that in the past, and we'd be happy to do that for you. We just get together later and get it organized. Okay. Any other questions before we continue? All right, I'd like to introduce now Assistant Purchasing Director Mike Sheets to talk about the purchasing decision path.